families, I'm Sally Stone, one of the founders and director of Kids Club Early Childhood Learning Centres. We are so excited that you have taken the time to join us tonight online for this exclusive Annabel Karmel live event. Here at Kids Club, we have a real passion for nutrition. That is the reason why we have partnered with world-renowned children's food expert Annabel Karmel. All our Kids Club centres come equipped with commercial-grade kitchens and fully qualified chef to ensure that every meal is freshly prepared on site and nutritionally developed to ensure that we can fuel children with the right foods. The combination of Annabel Karmel and our highly qualified team means that we can place a real focus on making sure that every meal time at Kids Club is both healthy and delicious. So without further ado, I would like to give a big warm welcome to Annabel Karmel. We can't wait to see what you have in store for us tonight, but I'm certain it will be as much of a treat as your delicious meals. Over to you, Annabel.
Hi, so I'm Annabel Karmel and I'm talking to you from London, my home. And I have been writing books on feeding children for over 30 years. I can't believe it's 3 decades. And it all started with my son being literally the world's worst eater. And unfortunately, I'd lost my first child. So I was very vulnerable and felt like I really needed to get him to eat well. And he was very fussy. And I'm sure many of you listening will also have fussy eaters. And I spent maybe over 2 years developing recipes for children. And I wrote a book eventually, which was kind of my legacy to my first child, Natasha, which is all about feeding babies and toddlers. Some of you may have used it to feed your babies, but it's this book, I don't know whether you recognize it. Oh, there we are, the Baby and Toddler Meal Planner. And that came out in 1991. It is now the 30th anniversary edition of that book. And it's bigger and better than ever. And it started my whole career. And I think I've probably spent more hours in the kitchen making food for children than probably anyone else ever has. And it's absolutely my passion. So I'm very happy to be here with you today to talk about teaching children how to cook and also about nutrition for children. And I'm very proud to be working with Kids Club in Australia. I think their nurseries are amazing. And we have both got a passion for giving children the right food. It's so important when your child goes to nursery that they are given good quality food, because children establish their eating habits very early on. So almost within the first 2 or 3 years, they decide what they like or what they don't like to eat. And they can be incredibly obstinate. But interestingly, when they're at nursery with their peer group and other children, that is one of the best times to get them to eat new food. Because if they see a little friend Johnny eating it, they're more likely to try it than if their mother is trying to get them to eat it. So we work very hard to make sure that we give children at the nursery all the best critical nutrients, but in a very tasty and fun way. And when I was in Sydney watching the children eat, we made this watermelon pizza. So it's a pizza, it has a little bit of yogurt on it and some blueberries and strawberries. So it looks a bit like a pizza, but it's made of fruit. There was one child who was extremely fussy and he just would not eat it. But then after a few minutes, after about 5 minutes of watching all the other children eat it, he decided to pick it up, took a tiny mouthful, and then decided that he actually liked it. And that is actually the breakthrough moment, because often, and it's really, really frustrating, but children will look at something and say, I don't like it, it's yucky, and they haven't taken the first mouthful. So nursery is very good for that. I want to talk to you a bit about teaching children how to cook, because that's another way of getting fussy children to eat new foods, because they take pride in cooking. And so if they've made it themselves, they're more likely to try it. So I've written a new book. It's this book, Fun, Fast and Easy Cookbook. It's all about teaching children how to cook. And I feel that it's so important. Not only are we teaching children a life skill that will probably help them to have a much healthier diet for their whole life and therefore live longer, because so many people die from a diet-related disease, but also teaches them many other skills. So when my children were 4, 6, and 7, every Friday, I would get them to cook supper for the family. And that's how they learned to cook. Now you'd think, wow, that seems very young, but I would help them chop things up. And it was amazing how skilled they actually were eventually after a few goes on a Friday at making something. And when you think about it, children can operate the most complicated computer games, but often they can't make a piece of toast or a scrambled egg. So it's really important that we get them to cook, and they love being part of adult life. And when they're cooking, they are learning skills, but in a fun way. So they're learning about weighing and measuring and time. And cooking things like eggs is a bit like a science experiment, because you cook an egg, you can boil an egg, you can scramble an egg, you can fry an egg. There's so many ways you can do it. You can do experiments with eggs, because bad eggs will float, good eggs will sink to the bottom of the water. And children are all fascinated with cooking, and they all love it. And I always feel like it's the time you spend with children that they remember, and their memories are from things like when you spend time with them in the kitchen making something. And Christmas is a great time to be cooking with children. And later on, I'll be talking about some holiday recipes. And everyone who's joined us today will get a special holiday recipe kind of like booklet that we've put together for you. So that things that you can make with your child. So in my book, Fun, Fast and Easy, I wanted to teach children the skills of cooking, but also some fun things about food and why they're good for them. Because it's not just about the skill of cooking, it's also about teaching them why fruit and vegetables are good and why more colourful fruits and vegetables are good. Because did you know that the more colourful a fruit, for example, a watermelon, is better for you than a honeydew melon? Because it's actually the pigment in the watermelon that gives it the antioxidants that are so important. So I don't know whether you can see this. It's quite bright here. But this is a watermelon. No, this is, sorry, watermelon. It's the yogurt rainbow. So fun things like that, just getting children to decorate their own bowl of yogurt with lots of different fruits in a rainbow of colours, and teaching children that eating different coloured fruits is so important for them. I love doing that. So I think children will have a blast in the kitchen. I think that we often think that young children, they may be too young to cook, but actually they can start when they're extremely young. So there are things like mashing, rolling out dough and cutting out shapes, even though they may not look quite like the biscuits you made, but they're having fun. Grating, as long as they keep their fingers away from the grater. Whisking, all sorts of things can be done by children when they're very young, and helping you out in the kitchen is what they absolutely love to do. Yes, it might make a bit of a mess, but you'll teach them a skill that will last them for the rest of their lives, and then more likely to try the foods that they have made. It's also important, I think, to teach children about the dangers of cooking, because if we just leave it to them one day, and they won't realize that the kettle is hot even when you've turned it off, or how to put a knife into the dishwasher upside down. And I also think that there comes an age where you need to teach your children how to use a sharp knife, because if they can't use a knife, it's going to be very difficult to cook very much without help. And you want them to learn to be independent. And I think everybody can judge their own child when they think they have the responsibility to be able to use a knife and cut things. I think it's important, though, not to feel that your children aren't capable of doing it. And under supervision, if you teach them properly, I think it's much better than one day they take a sharp knife and they cut their fingers. So things like that are very important. I also want to talk a bit about nutrition and what we're doing at Kids Club to make sure that children get the right nutrition. So we think that there's two very important critical nutrients that children probably don't get enough of. One is iron. In fact, iron is the commonest nutritional deficiency in children. And a lot of children now are choosing to be vegetarian. So it's a really good tip to know that even if you're giving your child a plant-based food that contains iron, it's actually very difficult for them to be able to absorb the iron unless you give them vitamin C at the same meal. So we look to combine the right foods together. So if we're making a vegetarian meal, we will put something like, for example, if we put lentils into a soup, we would add some red pepper, which contains vitamin C, and that will mean that they can actually absorb the iron in the lentils. And simple things for you to do at home, if you're going to give your child a bowl of cereal, for example, and if you add strawberries to it, that cereal contains the iron. Because you've added the strawberries that contain vitamin C, your child can absorb the iron. And if not, you can be giving your child spinach and whole grain cereals that contain iron and your child's not absorbing it. So the best and most easily absorbed sources of iron are red meat. And we do put quite a lot of red meat on the menus. And it was interesting that, I gave a lot of recipes to Kids Club and they said, we want more recipes with red meat. And that's because it is the best quality iron for your child and very easily absorbed. So we do things like a hidden vegetable spaghetti bolognese, which has 6 different vegetables blended into it to make sure that the children eat lots of veggies. Because that's another thing that's really important. Most children don't eat enough fruit and vegetables. And sometimes if you get stuck on getting your children to eat fruit and vegetables, you just have to think about a different way of presenting them. So, for example, you can put a kiwi in an egg cup. You can cut a mango into a hedgehog. You can make fresh fruit ice lollies out of watermelon, kiwi, blended berry fruits. There are many ways of getting your children to eat fruits and vegetables. So, for example, when I was writing a book called The Busy Mum's Cookbook, my children never liked cauliflower. I just could not get them to eat cauliflower. Do you know what it was? They loved broccoli, but cauliflower was a complete no-no. And then I decided I was going to make roasted cauliflower, and I put a little bit of vinaigrette on it. And they came down and they tried it. And from that day, they absolutely loved cauliflower. So maybe steamed cauliflower doesn't appeal to children, but roasted cauliflower, which brings out the natural caramelized flavor in the cauliflower, is a whole different thing. And they loved it. Spiralizers, this was a big fashion in the UK, probably came through Australia as well. So if you put a big courgette into a spiralizer and you turn the handle, that courgette becomes green spaghetti, and the children think they're eating spaghetti. So that's another good way of getting children to eat vegetables. So there's always different ways. Also, you can make, I don't know where you can see this picture, but the photographs in this book are amazing. But we did crudités, and we made a dip, and we made it like a lion. So that is a hummus dip with lots of crudités around it. So just making something look appealing like that is such fun for kids, and that's a fun thing for them to make. I'll share a couple of other things in this book which are really lovely, and I cook from it a lot for my children. This, see that? Oh, there we are. That is a poached egg, but it looks like a rabbit. And pancakes. I mean, who doesn't love pancakes? So we made in this book a fun way of making pancakes, and you can make pancakes with mashed banana and add more healthy ingredients. So this is a caterpillar. So all these things are really fun for kids to cook and well within their grasp. So I've tried to choose things that are not difficult to make. Or just decorating something. For example, this is a bowl of porridge. And if you give your children some strawberries, bananas, blueberries, and mango, not only are you adding the iron to the porridge, which is giving them a vitamin C with the fruits, is giving them the ability to absorb the iron from porridge, which contains iron, but they're having fun decorating and they're more likely to eat it. So that's a fun way. And then over here, we have some muffins. So sometimes snacking can be healthy. So these are muffins, but they've got carrot and apple in them. And it's a really fun way to decorate them. And children love making cupcakes, but why not make them a little bit more healthy with some vegetables in them? So lots of ideas here to cook for your children. And then over here, I was talking about critical nutrients. This is actually a recipe that we have in Kids Club. See that? That is a glazed salmon recipe. So I'm very keen on getting children to eat oily fish. That's because our brains are made up primarily of omega-3 fatty acids, and a child's brain is developing very rapidly in the early years. And if you want your child to learn and have good behavior, it's really important that you make sure that they have oily fish like salmon twice a week. So things like this is a sticky salmon and rice, and it's really delicious. And the thing about fish, which is great, is that it's so quick to cook. And this one is simple. It's just a little bit of ketchup, a little bit of soy sauce, a bit of sweet chili sauce, and some salmon. And you cut the salmon into cubes. You mix it with that lovely kind of marinade, and you just cook it in the oven in a little bit of foil for about 10 to 12 minutes. And then you make it, I made it with some rice, which is some colorful rice with lots of veggies. So bear in mind, if your child isn't eating enough oily fish, that you should try and make sure that they have oily fish in their diet. Iron, interestingly, iron, you should try and get your child to eat iron twice a day. Now that might sound like a lot, but it's not really, because it's quite simple. If you give them a whole grain cereal or whole grain toast and some vitamin C rich fruits like berries, that's a portion of iron. If you give them a scrambled egg, that's a portion of iron. This recipe here is my vroom vroom spaghetti bolognese. Ooh, stick there. So this one, this bolognese, we make it a lot in my house. These are quite fun plates. We got them on Amazon. So in here we've got red pepper, celery, leek, onion, carrot, mushrooms, and a little bit of my secret ingredient, which is grated apple. So So that's a great recipe for children to have. And also on our menus for Kids Club, we do a lot of food from around the world, because I think we often feel that children they only like chicken nuggets and pizzas, and we should be careful with what we give them because those are the foods that they like. But I think we need to open their eyes to many different cultures. And I found that my children loved curry. So this is another recipe actually in Kids Club, a fruity chicken korma curry. And it's really delicious. It's super easy to make. And children really love it. It's not very spicy. It's got lots of vegetables in it, and it's got a little bit of apple in it, and it's got a little bit of mango chutney. Very, very simple to make. So if you're having a curry night, why not get your child to join in? And again, sizzling stir fries. And stir fries are a great way to get children to eat more vegetables because they're quick to cook. And the key is not to overcook the vegetables. I think that I was put off quite a few things at school because a lot of the things, they were overcooked, and we would have soggy broccoli. And we're very careful at Kids Club. They have amazing chefs, because if you don't give children the right food when they're young and they're used to having soggy broccoli, it could actually put them off broccoli for life. So snacks are quite fun to make as well. And this is a snack, but also could be a meal, and a very, very popular meal with my children. And again, this is something that we make in the nursery. These are sweet corn fritters. They're tomato and sweet corn fritters. Again, very easy to make. So what's in these is tinned sweet corn, some chopped tomatoes, a little bit of garlic, a little bit of sweet chili sauce, some parmesan, an egg, a little bit of flour, baking powder, and you make them into fritters. And really within 10-15 minutes, you've got an amazing meal. So lots of things that they can make. Pizza, of course, is a great favorite with children. And why not get them to make their own pizza? So what I did, and what we just did recently, I make recipes for hotels for their menus, and we had a cooking extravaganza on Sunday, and we got the children to make all the food for their tea party. And I used to do this for cooking birthday parties. So when the children came, I would measure up things like pizzas and muffins and all sorts of things to make. Even the birthday cake would be a self-assembly train cake, and they would have a cooking party, which would be the whole party. Because often it's not children, they want to be proactive. They don't want to sit and watch something like an entertainer or go to the cinema. And it's a really, really good idea to have a cooking birthday party. And I tell you, every child after that, they said to their mum and dad, I want a cooking party too. That's what I want to do. So getting kids involved. So yeah, just to recap, I don't think you can ever start too young. I think they can be by your side. They can be mashing. They can be helping you. They can be stirring. Don't worry about knives and things like that. Get them to understand at a certain age how to use a knife. Better that you tell them and you teach them than one day experiment. It's a perfect time when they're young to introduce them to the wonders of the kitchen. Many things they can do. And I think that it's really important. And I was talking about how they learn so many other skills when they're actually cooking, like maths, like time, like measuring, and they really enjoy doing that. So I'm going to hand you over in a minute to a video that Kids Club have made with one of their chefs, who's going to be chatting about some of the amazing array of foods that we make at Kids Club. And you may find it's quite interesting to know. I used to know what my children had eaten because most of it ended up on the school uniform. So I could tell when they did spaghetti because they had orange stains on it. But if you can get your children to try and tell you what they've eaten, or perhaps at Kids Club, they will tell you and find out what they enjoy eating. Maybe you can get the recipe and make it with them at home, or try this book, which is available now in Australia, and gives children so many different things to cook from, and open up a whole new world of teaching children how to cook. For example, this is a tasty tomato and vegetable soup. Again, a lovely thing to make. And soups are a great way to get kids to eat vegetables, because this one has not just tomatoes, but it has celery, red pepper, carrots, and butternut squash in it, all blended into the soup. So this is a great way. And it can be challenging, especially over Christmas when, they're at home, to find things to get children interested in and not like sitting watching a video. And cooking is one of those wonderful things, or getting a group of your children's friends over and just having a little tiny cooking party for maybe 3 or 4 children together. And they can make their own tea. And children will remember that. That's what memories are made from. So thank you for listening to me. I am coming back because I will be showing you some great holiday recipes that you can make at home over the Christmas period. and I'll be answering some of your questions as well. I'm longing to come to Australia. I'm hoping to come early next year. You probably know that we make food for supermarkets like Coles and Woolworths. We make ready meals, and we make a new range of finger foods called Little Tasters. They're really healthy. They give lots of vegetables to children. I'm really proud of the food that we have made for supermarkets. No one had actually made healthy children's food before I was approached by a company in Australia. And I really miss coming over. I haven't been for almost 2 years because of COVID. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to come over in February and hopefully come to Kids Club as well.
I'm Mark, one of the chefs at Kids Club Early Childhood Learning Centers. I have been a chef for more than 30 years, and I have worked for the Shangri-La Group more than 18 years. And I also work in a hospital that preparing meals for patients that require special diets. Here at Kids Club, we have real focus on your child's nutrition. As Sally said earlier, this is why we have partnered with Annabel Karmel to develop amazing recipe to fuel young bodies for full day learning, playing and discovery. Working with Annabel's recipe and our own creations, each chef across our services developed a specifically catered menu to suit the needs of each of the children. All our chef takes into consideration specific dietary requirements for our families, as well as catering for children's particular taste palettes to ensure that every child enjoy 5 healthy, delicious meals throughout the day. As you can see behind me, all Kids Club food is prepared fresh, in-house, and daily through our commercial-grade kitchens to ensure that each child gets the very best for their daily nutrition needs. If you haven't seen what our services offer, then I welcome you to come and tour today. Back to you, Annabel.
Oh, that's one of my dogs. I have 4 dogs, including puppies. So we have shut them out of the room, but I think they want to come in. So I wanted to talk to you about holiday cooking. And in fact, everyone who has joined us today will be getting this little booklet. Let me just find it somewhere. I'm sure it's here. No, perhaps it's not here. Maybe it's in the kitchen. Let's have a look. Okay, we're going to go and find it. Anyway, whilst we are finding it, I want to show you a couple of things that I've made for Christmas. So we have over here some cookies. The great thing about these cookies is they're very simple to make. Now, this is a gingerbread cookie. You see that, right? But if you turn it upside down, do you know what that is? That's a reindeer. So it's interesting. You can make 2 different things out of a gingerbread cookie. You can make gingerbread men like these. And this is a really simple recipe. It literally takes 10 minutes to bake this in the oven, which is great because children don't have a lot of patience when it comes to cooking. But if you turn it the other way up, did we find it? Oh, yes. If we turn it the other way up, you can make a reindeer. So these are fun things. So I'm just going to talk you through. I've got it now. This is it. Oh, there we are. So everyone's going to get one of these, which you can download and print out. So to make the gingerbread men, which is one of my favorite gingerbread recipes and super simple and completely foolproof, this is what you need. You need butter at room temperature. That's really important. It's much easier to work with. Soft, dark brown sugar, a little bit of golden syrup, some egg yolk, little bit, not too much or they go too soft. Plain flour, ground ginger, a little bit of bicarbonate of soda. So what you do, you get your child in the kitchen, hopefully with an apron on. You beat the butter and sugar together. That's why it has to be room temperature. With an electric whisk, which they can hold. And then they love that. Add a little bit of golden syrup. A little tip on golden syrup. So when you want to get golden syrup out of the tin, if you if you put a little bit of oil on the spoon, it will literally just slip off the spoon, because you know how it gets stuck to the spoon, it's all gloopy. That is a good trick. Then you mix it all together with the egg yolk, flour, ginger, bicarbonate soda, and the plain flour, mold it into a ball, and you pop it in the fridge for about half an hour. We do that because it makes it a little bit more firm, so that they can roll it out. And then you put a floured wax surface, you put some flour on your rolling pin, and that's what they love. And they roll it out into a reasonably thin, about 3 millimeters. And then they start cutting out with their cutters the different shapes. So you can make some into gingerbread men and some upside down into reindeers. That is a really fun thing to do over Christmas. And you can make little piping bags like these if you want to, or you can have writing icing like this, which you can probably buy in the supermarket. So I've given you actually 2 gingerbread recipes. So the gingerbread reindeer are made with a slightly different recipe. Let me talk through that. So that's also delicious. Slightly more ingredients in that one. Hold on a second. Here we go, reindeer gingerbread. So this one contains, this one here, which is a little bit darker. This contains butter, soft brown sugar, egg, plain flour, cinnamon, ginger, mixed spice, black treacle instead of golden syrup, and a little bit of salt. So here we get the children, and it's good if you can get them to measure everything out. So they measure the butter and the sugar, then they put it into a large mixing bowl. Then you get one of these handheld whisks, can help them with that. And they whisk it until it's light and fluffy. Then you lightly knead the mixture into a dough, and you wrap it up in cling film like we did the other one, and you chill it in the fridge for 30 minutes. Then you preheat your oven. And then when it comes out of the fridge after 30 minutes, they can roll out the dough with a rolling pin, but just teach them that they need to put flour on the surface and flour on the rolling pin, or it gets stuck. So that's important to know. And then they cut it out, and if you line a baking sheet with some non-stick paper and you give them a pallet, like a little pallet to lift them up, they can put them onto the tray. And if you turn them upside down, eventually, once they're cooked, you can then decorate them to look like a reindeer. So these are really fun as well. Now, I'm making something over here. I'll just finish it off because bananas never look good. Oh, there we go. That is quite fun and very easy to make and healthy. I don't know if you can see this. Whoops, can you see that? Oh, my nose is falling off. It's not easy to hold these the right way up, but it is a strawberry Santa. So I might show you the picture from it. They're over here. Can you see that? Strawberry Santas. So basically they're banana with like a slice of marshmallow on top and a red M&M for the nose. And we have these googly eyes, which we can buy in UK in supermarkets. Now, if you don't have those, you can make them with a little bit of white icing and a black writing icing pen. So these are just some fun things to make at Christmas. And in my book, there's a lovely recipe which I made for Christmas, which I will show you. Another fun one, which is for a festive Christmas breakfast. Let me grab this one. So this is actually eggy raisin bread. So what you do is you take raisin bread, small raisin bread, you slice it and you dip it into a little bit of egg, okay? And then you just fry it a little bit, and you could actually put egg and a little bit of mashed banana if you want to. And then once you've cooked it, you can just layer it up like this, and then you can put blueberries around it and some raspberries at the top, and you have your own eggy bread Christmas tree. That's a really fun thing to make. That's in my book, Fun, Fast and Easy Kids Cookbook. So in your holiday cooking, festive cooking with kids, this little book that you're all going to get, we have some interesting things. We have something that we actually make in the kids club, which is a lovely thing to make at home. I will show you. These are, can you see that? Turkey and cranberry stars. Oh, let me just get it there. Okay, so what I did was, for this recipe, I take a star cutter and I mix together some minced turkey. We can do it with minced chicken, a little bit of grated apple, a shallot chopped up or onion, some dried cranberries chopped up, a little bit of fresh sage. I like to add herbs because you don't have to add so much salt. It gives it, well, you don't need to add salt to it at all. A little bit of parmesan, some panko breadcrumbs. And you take your star cutter, you kind of get the mixture inside the star cutter, push it around the edges, and then you lift it up and you make lots of different stars and then you bake them in the oven. And this is a very good way of making something a little bit healthier than a chicken nugget because it's baked in the oven, it's not fried, and the cranberries and the turkey, it's an amazing combination. So definitely try that one. I mean, I gave it to my 30-year-old son the other day and he said, oh, wow, this is amazing. I love this recipe. There's another recipe here for the whole family in this booklet, a turkey lasagna. Everyone loves lasagna. So this one has onions, minced turkey, a little bit of garlic, tin chopped tomatoes, chicken stock, sun-dried tomato paste. I like that, gives a good flavor. Some oregano, or oregano, I don't know how you say it, thyme, some lasagna cheese, mascarpone cheese, and cheddar cheese. Really delicious turkey lasagna. And if you happen to be vegetarian, I've got a meatless sausage roll, which you can make, and a wild rice salad with cranberries, turkey, and pomegranate. So lots of different recipes. And if you look on my Instagram or my website, you will find lots of edible gifts to make for Christmas. I mean, there's nothing nicer than having something which is homemade and given to your teacher or your friends or your family. And I used to make this Christmas cake for all my kids' teachers every year. And it was delicious. I mean, I made it with brandy and lots of like dried fruits and nuts and all sorts of things in it and decorated it, made it look lovely, put it in a beautiful tin. And you can make these well in advance of Christmas. You can be making them now because the longer you keep them, the better they are. And then when my child was leaving one of the schools, the headmistress said to me, I've got a confession to make. I've been telling everybody that I made this Christmas cake and I've had it for 4 years. I don't know how to make it and you're leaving and you're not going to be making it for me anymore. So I gave her the recipe. That was quite funny. I've got another one because I showed you before an owl porridge. You can see this. Yeah, just about. This is a reindeer porridge. So I've actually added blueberries, a raspberry, and some strawberries to make it look like a reindeer. So that's a fun festive porridge. So these are great ideas for Christmas. This one is a kiwi Christmas tree. So you can make a Christmas tree, really simple. The kids will love doing that. But what we've done here is we have sliced kiwis, which are very good for children. They're very rich in vitamin C, and actually they contain iron as well. So kiwi is great. And then I've like designed them in a triangle, and I put a star on top. That's actually a star fruit, perfect for the top of a Christmas tree. And started it with baubles of blueberries and raspberries. Now that is super simple to make. So even a very young child can make that. So there's some great ideas there for you to get busy in the kitchen with your children. And I have always tried to get children involved with Christmas. And you'll see on my website that there's one recipe which my children absolutely loved. And I call it Rudolph the Red-Nosed Baked Potato. What it actually is a baked potato. And I baked a butternut squash because that's really good for them. It's got more vitamins in it than potato because it has orange. I was talking about pigment being very important. The colourful vegetables are better for you than the less colourful ones. So then I mix the roasted butternut squash with the roasted potato and I add a little bit of cheese to it and I put it back into the potato shell. And then I add 2 pretzels for the antlers, a small cherry tomato for the nose, a scallion like a spring onion for the tail, and olives for the eyes. And it looks like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Baked Potato. And very often children don't like roast turkey. And it's a really fun thing to give them for Christmas. And very often they don't like Christmas pudding either. So there's lots of ideas in my books or on my website or on my app. If you have my app, I have an app which has over 300 recipes. It has actually a whole section on Christmas and lots of Christmas recipes. And amazingly, it is the best-selling food and drink app in the whole of the UK. And it's really about feeding babies and toddlers and getting children to cook and feeding families. And it just shows you that I think that so many parents care so much about what their children are eating. And I have to say that when I got married, I used to boil all my vegetables. But when I had a child, I realized that boiling vegetables is the worst thing you can do because lots of the vitamins in vegetables, like vitamins B and C, go into the water. But it was only when I had my child, I started to steam vegetables and started to think about like the quality of the food that I'm giving to my child. I mean, I think we're all guilty of this, but we don't like look after our partners as much as we do our children. And also when I was writing my book and I made all these purees, and it would be a lot of soup for dinner. It was basically an extended puree with extra stock in it that my husband had. He was not complaining too much because I'm always writing books on feeding babies and toddlers. So we get a lot of soup in this family. I know that I'm going to be answering questions too. And there's lots of questions that have come up here on the right-hand side, which I will be answering. Shall I go and do that now? I'm waiting. Okay. But it's all about like children not eating vegetables, which I'm sure is a common problem. But I will be talking about that and helping you with some of your fussy eater problems, because I had 3 fussy children, which I think is the best training for anyone who's going to help other people to feed their children, because first of all, you're emotionally involved with your child. So it's very difficult, and they play out more with their parents than anyone else, which is why I was talking about nurseries being a great place to be able to get children to try new foods, because of the pressure on the peer pressure and seeing other children around them eating something is going to tempt them to try it. And all the tricks that you can do. In fact, in one of my books over here, I think it's over here, it's called Real Food Kids Will Love. It's a lovely book. It's all about lots of tabs in it. I can see that. But it's a family cookbook. But at the back of the book, we created, you can see that, it is a chart. And what it is if your child eats a certain fruit or vegetable, or any fruit or vegetable, they get a sticker. So you put this up on the kitchen wall, and every time they get a sticker, they stick it in here, and then they get a reward. And the reward would be something like being able to stay up a bit later to watch their favorite TV program, or going to a football match, or whatever the child likes, but obviously not a treat that's bad for them. So I'm very into making snacks part of their everyday good quality food. And interestingly, if you ask my children what they want to eat when they come back from wherever they are, they will say, and no one actually believes this, but it is actually true, I want salad. And they want salad because when they were very young and all the way through growing up, I would make the most delicious salad dressings. And I would add things like a bit of honey and soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, and light olive oil. And I would make it with pasta and broccoli and sweet corn and cherry tomatoes. And there's actually a recipe in my book for this, which is a delicious recipe. Really simple salad dressing, but very, very tasty. And the children would love eating salad. So this is actually a salad. This is an orzo salad. You can see that? It's actually made with orzo pasta, which children love. It looks like rice, but it's actually pasta. A little bit of broccoli, which I steamed. Some cooked chicken. You can even buy cooked chicken, so it's simple. Some tinned sweet corn, cherry tomatoes, and freshly chopped basil. And the dressing is light olive oil, rice wine vinegar, soy sauce, and a little bit of honey. And it's the dressing that gets the kids to eat that salad. And they used to take that in their lunch boxes if they didn't want to eat food at school. But also, they went to a school where they didn't like the school lunch. So they would take bottles of my salad dressing, a different one, and they would just pour it all over the school food. So it actually only tasted of salad dressing. And then all the other children wanted it as well. So we take these huge bottles to school. And that was the way I got them to enjoy eating school food. The trouble is, like, if food isn't good at school, and a lot of schools they cut corners and they don't want to spend too much on their children's meals, which actually is very counterproductive, because if children don't eat well at lunchtime, they're not going to concentrate in the afternoon. So we make sure at Kids Club that children love the food they're going to eat, that it's healthy, it's nutritious, but it's also fun. We also make sure that they're involved with the food they eat. They get a chance to get involved, to make food themselves. We give them a love of cooking, we give them a love of good food, and we talk to them about nutrition. And sometimes children come home and they'll say to their mum, well, why are you eating like this? Because we've been taught that you shouldn't have this because it contains this much sugar. And it's interesting, like some salad dressings, we teach children about like how to measure sugar at the back of a packet. So for example, 4 grams of sugar is actually a teaspoon. And very often you look at the back of a salad dressing and it has 18 grams of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. And it's a good tip to know that. And if you teach your children to read labels and be a bit of a food detective, it actually stands them in good stead for when they're grown up and they choose what they want to eat. Because, training children is important, and they like that. So we're going to wrap up, and I will soon be answering your questions. I know a lot of you have asked lots of really good questions that I'm keen to answer. Oh, I'd love my child to eat and enjoy salads. Is too much fruit unhealthy for my toddler? What are some great snacks for 3-year-olds? So I'll be answering all these questions in a minute. My child will not eat any vegetables other than carrot and cucumber. They love cucumber. She's 4 going on 5. Is it too late to try and introduce her to new vegetables? Never. Love to get her to eat capsicum, celery, cabbage, etc. Well, I'll be giving you some tips on that. So we had a few questions. One was a really interesting question, actually. It was how to deal with allergies at Christmas. It was a very good question because, if your child has a nut allergy, there's sometimes things that contain nuts which you might not realize would contain nuts, like stuffing, for example, or Christmas cake, or mince pies, or festive bread studded with nuts. And, a lot of children now have a peanut allergy. If you have a young child, the recommendation now, and there's been a lot of research in it, is that you should give peanut butter from 6 months, unless there's a good reason not to. Because you can actually help to sensitize your child to peanut butter by giving it early. And interestingly, up until now, and this is really important for anyone who has an allergy, if you get something from like a Pret a Manger takeaway, it didn't have the full ingredients on it. And this changed recently in the UK. It's called Natasha's Law, because there was a little girl and she bought a sandwich at a cafe and then went on a plane, and it didn't have the full ingredients on it. And she had no idea that it had sesame in it. And she got a very, very serious allergy and actually died on the plane. And now they have a new law called Natasha's Law that if you buy something from a store, it must have the full ingredient list on it. And I think this is very important. And I know that children, and she wasn't such a young child, she was a teenager, so she read very carefully what was on the ingredients and felt reassured that there was no sesame in it. It was a very sad way, but she has done a lot of good for other children, hopefully. The interesting thing about allergies, actually, which is quite important to know, is that many allergies children grow out of, particularly dairy allergies and allergies to eggs. And sometimes if a child has an allergy to eggs and they can't eat scrambled eggs or they can't eat omelette, they can eat eggs in things like meatballs or possibly coating in a chicken nugget or in a biscuit. And now, if you can give your child anything with a tiny bit of egg in it, it will help them to grow out of the allergies. It's quite good to know that. There's also a question about snacks, like what you can give for a healthy snack. So there's some great things that we make in the nursery. We make muffin frittatas. It's like a mini Spanish omelette. And it's just like egg, which we beat up, actually 5 eggs. And then you put things in it like parboiled new potatoes, a little bit of onion, a little bit of cherry tomatoes. You can put spinach in it. You put it all into muffin trays, individual muffin trays, bake them in the oven for about 20-25 minutes. And you get these mini Spanish omelets. I mean, it's such a good food. It's full of iron, full of vegetables, many things, really tasty. And there's a bit of cheese in it as well. A recipe here I want to show you, because this is one that my children love. It's a healthy pot noodle recipe and they love it. And pot noodles, of course, are very, very popular with kids. But unfortunately, they contain often a lot of salt. But this one, which is my pot noodle recipe, it's super simple to make. It's just medium noodles, which you can buy in the supermarket, spring onion, grated carrot, sweet corn, peas, cooked chicken, a little bit of chicken stock, a little bit of soy sauce, and some bean sprouts. And great way to give your children pot noodles, but not too much salt in them. Over here, we've got, I would love my child to eat and enjoy salads. Yes. So as I was saying, like, it's about the dressing, and it's about salads contain so many different things. Sometimes I will put dried cranberries into the salad. Children love that. I do a salad which is made with giant couscous. Giant couscous, also called Israeli couscous, is like large pieces of round pasta. Children love it. And I make this like red onion dressing, and I put lots of veggies in it and some dried cranberries. It's a recipe on my website. It is absolutely delicious and a great one to make for Christmas. So have a look at that. I think it's called my giant couscous salad. You'll find it on my website. And the salad that is in this cookbook is very good. The one with the orzo and the broccoli and chicken, and it's very good for kids. They love it. What is a great snack? I've done that one. My child will not eat any vegetables other than carrot and cucumber. She's 4 going on 5. Is it too late to try and introduce her to new vegetables? I'd love to give her capsicum, celery, cabbage, etc. So I was talking earlier about how to get children to eat vegetables. So sometimes they'll eat them raw, because very often they like raw carrot and raw cucumber, and they won't eat them cooked. So that's a good way. And there's some vegetables you may not have tried. For example, if you've ever tried sugar snap peas. Sugar snap peas, when they're raw, are absolutely delicious, and they're really, really sweet. And then if you have a tasty dip with them, I mean, kids love hummus. That's a good dip, really good, or a guacamole, or a sour cream and chive dip, and they can dip it in. That would be good. Other ways are obviously not to boil the vegetables, but to steam them and not to cook them too long, because that's how they retain their color and their bite, which is so much nicer. And then what I was speaking about earlier, which is actually roasting vegetables in the oven, is one of the best ways to prepare vegetables, because it caramelizes the natural sugar in the vegetables. So perhaps instead of giving children chips or potatoes, because potatoes are not actually classified as a vegetable. They are not one of your 5 a day, but sweet potato is. It's the orange pigment in the sweet potato that gives it the beta carotene, which is the vegetable source of vitamin A. If you cut the sweet potato into wedges, you don't take the skin off, you just scrub it, because the skin is some of the best nutrients are in the skin or just below the skin. Cut into wedges, and you just you can add a little bit of herbs or a bit of parmesan, add a little bit of oil sprinkled over it, and bake it in the oven for about 35 minutes. Absolutely delicious. Children love them. Much better for them than chips. And if you're making something like a fish pie or a cottage pie, instead of just putting mashed potato on top, I will make potato and carrot, maybe a little bit of cheese, and make that for the topping. So they've got one of their 5 a day in the topping. And for a fussy child, sometimes if you have a cottage pie and you just dollop like a mound of it on a plate, is pretty unappealing, and children do eat with their eyes. So if you have small ramekin dishes and you put the mixture into a ramekin dish and then the potato on top, maybe even pipe it on top, or just do it with a spoon, and they have their own individual dish, and then you can pop like 6 of those in the freezer, so you can just take them out as and when you need them. It's so much more appealing to have their own individual portion than a dollop of food on the plate. So that makes a big difference. So other things for fussy eaters that I find work are to ignore bad eating habits. Now that is not easy, I know, because you get very wound up, and who wouldn't when your child doesn't eat? But if you can like try and hold it in, and instead, if they try even the infinitesimally smallest amount of something new and heap on the praise, they will soon realize that they're not going to get attention for not eating, and the only attention they will get is for eating something. And it's interesting, like if they don't get attention for their bad eating habits, they actually do eventually stop doing it. Might take a little bit of time, but you're training them to, like, you'll get mummy's attention when you eat something. So reward charts are good too, if they actually can put stickers on these and then see that they actually get a reward at the end of it. Cooking themselves in the kitchen, that helps. Getting a child over who's a good eater, that's really good. Again, that's why nurseries are good, because you have some good eaters in nurseries that will train the more fussy eaters to try something because their friends are trying it. If all else fails, you have to resort sometimes to disguise. So what I do is I make the most amazing lollies, which have vegetables in them, or even just like lots of fruits. So these are some of the lollies I have in my book. But I actually make a beetroot and strawberry and I have apple juice in it, lolly. And so your child's actually having fruit and vegetables in a lolly, but they don't realize it. And I have another one, which is carrot, mango, and orange juice. It's actually in my complete baby toddler book. So that's a good idea, because no child will ever say no to an iced lolly. And we make some things at Kids Club which look like chocolate, but they're not. They are made with dates and oats and raisins and all good ingredients. And you roll them into little balls and they look brown in color. So they look like truffles, but actually they're kind of energy balls. So they think they're having something from the chocolate box, but actually they're having good quality food. So getting children, yes, try new food. So mini portions, fresh food like lollies. The other thing I do, which works very well, and if your child's already hooked on junk food, is instead of buying chicken nuggets, which sometimes are quite high in salt and high in saturated fat, you can make your own chicken nugget. And how I make mine is I take good quality chicken and then I coat it in flour. I dip it into a little bit of egg, a little bit of seasoning. And then I coat it in crushed Rice Krispies and a little bit of Parmesan, and I bake them in the oven, and they are absolutely delicious. And you get your children to help you make them. I make my own burgers. So I use really good quality minced meat, but then I add capsicum and grated apple and some grated carrot. And they're really delicious. It's the little bit of grated apple that works well. I really came up with that idea because my son, who I talked about earlier, my second child, he was literally the world's worst eater, and I couldn't get him to eat chicken. And so I made these chicken balls. I used chicken thigh, which is twice as rich in iron as the breast. And then I added some breadcrumbs and a little bit of chopped onion, lots of herbs, a little bit of egg. And I made them into very small balls with the grated apple in them. And I baked them in the oven. And from that day on, he loved eating chicken. If anyone has an egg allergy, and I often get asked this if I'm like posting recipes on my Instagram with egg, actually a really good way to bind things like chicken nuggets with the coating on top, because we normally dip them in egg, is to mix chia seeds or flax seeds with a little bit of water. So like 1 tablespoon of chia seeds, 1 tablespoon of flax seeds, with about 3 tablespoons of water, leave it for a few minutes to go gloopy, and then dip the chicken nuggets in there. Or make the meatballs, and if they will stick together by adding this. And it sounds odd, but it works absolutely brilliantly, and it's a very good substitute for egg. And egg allergy is quite common, much more common than people think. But luckily, it is one of the allergies that children will grow out of. I also think it's important to eat as a family, if you can, whenever you can. And I know it's not always possible, but if you can reserve Sunday lunch or Friday that they cook for the family, and getting involved with, children and eating when they see you eating something. Also, a very fussy child, one of the tricks I used was, no, you can't have it. It's on my plate, so it's not for you. And the more they say you can't have it, the more they want it, obviously. Or you can do a double bluff where because they're quite clever children, and they can see a tiny bit of green in a sea of tomato sauce. They will pick it out. So if you've actually blended most of your vegetables into a tomato sauce and you leave a few bits of vegetables in there and they pick those 3 out, they'll never think the rest of them are actually still in there. So it's actually a double bluff. That worked quite well with my kids because they're quite canny and quite obstinate and quite stubborn. And unless you have your own children, you cannot believe that such a small creature can be quite difficult when it comes to food. So I always thought, because I love eating, that my children just like open their mouth and swallow and love whatever it was. But unfortunately, all my children were quite fussy and difficult. But the good news is they love their food now, and they're super adventurous with food. They think about food all the time. My son came back to live with me because he had COVID last Christmas, and he hasn't left the house. He's still with me because I think it's to do with food. He comes down and there's so much food on the table, and I've kept him at home, which is lovely. I mean, he's now bought a house, so he will be moving out soon, but it's been lovely having my children back. And it's interesting that he remembers the food that he ate when he was 4 years old. He will say, Mummy, I remember that. You made that cottage pie and you put like layers of carrot and mushrooms and all sorts of things. Will you make it for me? And it is interesting how children remember these things. It's part of their memories. Someone's asked, are we getting this booklet as well? Yes, everybody's getting this booklet. It's got some great recipes in it. And you'll be able to download this booklet. So let me see. Oh, that sounds, for grown-ups. Yes, most of the things I make are good for grown-ups and children. Is too much fruit unhealthy for my toddler? Somebody has asked. That's a really good question, actually. So fruit is a really good food, but any food in excess is not good. And the thing about fruit is it's quite low in calories. And we, as adults, are given the guidelines that we should have lots of fruit and vegetables, lots of fiber, and not too much fat. Actually, for children, it's not the same because children grow very rapidly in their first year, especially toddlers. So toddlers actually shouldn't have too much fiber. So you should mix like white pasta and whole grain pasta, or sometimes you give brown bread, sometimes you give white bread. And also you should look for high calorie foods. So instead of buying a low fat yogurt for your toddler, you should always choose a full fat yogurt. And things like cheese are good. So whereas fruits and vegetables are great and a mixture of different varieties of fruit is good, too much fruit can cause your child to have diarrhea, but also too much fruit can fill your child up without giving your child the critical nutrients that they need. And we talked a bit earlier about some of those. One was iron. Iron is really important, and you'll get that from eggs, meat, chicken, lentils. We talked about the combination of iron-rich plant-based foods with fruit, so the berry fruits or the kiwi fruits, which contain a lot of vitamin C. If you combine those with a breakfast cereal, your child's going to be able to absorb iron from it. If you don't give them the vitamin C, they can eat the cereal, but they won't be able to absorb the iron. So that's a good point. So I would say like nothing in excess. It's all about balance and making sure that your child has hopefully iron twice a day, which we talked about. Sounds like a lot, but it's not that difficult. Critical nutrients like oily fish twice a week. And that's one of the things that you cannot really get anywhere else. The best source of essential fatty acids is oily fish. And so for vegetarians, although flax seeds and some kinds of nuts have omega-3s in them and certain oils do, it's quite difficult for them to get enough. And I would say if you're bringing your child up on a vegetarian diet and particularly a vegan diet, you should give a supplement of at least omega-3s and vitamin B12. It's really important because those are the kind of things you get from meat. Thank you. Someone says loving all the tips. How much food should you provide babies for their snacks, given their main meal will only be around 1 hour later? Okay, so don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but babies don't need snacks, really, not until they're at least 10 months. And you see this proliferation of these puff snacks and these multi-yogurt bites, which contain a lot of sugar, all over the supermarkets. And you're just filling a child up with like empty calories. I don't see a place for them in a child's diet. They say they've got carrot in them, but if you look at the back of the packet, it says like 3% carrot. Just give them a carrot. Much better, it's 100% carrot. So if I was going to give my child a snack, I wouldn't buy those because I don't think they have much good in them. Yes, they say they've got no nasties in them. But what do they have that's good? They're just literally, I don't know, just puffed crisps with a tiny bit of sprayed vegetable on. I would rather make something like our frittata muffin, that would be good, which is made with eggs. Mini energy balls, for example, or something like healthy pot noodles or my Leo Line veggie dip. Or if you're going out and about, take carrot sticks. And a good tip is if you wrap them in damp kitchen paper, it keeps them lovely and moist because you know how carrots end up getting very dry and then they're not nice. If you take a little pot of hummus and some carrot sticks with you and your child's hungry, much better you give them that than you buy these snacks, which are not good for them. And then I say that children have two stomachs. One is a very small stomach for their main meal, and the other one is a huge stomach for their snacks. And we don't want them to get like that. We want them to eat their main meals. And I think, I don't think you should be giving snacks now before a meal. I think it should be before that. Because otherwise you're kind of training them to eat and graze during the day the whole time. And then they'll never sit down and eat a proper meal. And that's quite difficult for you because then when you want to rush out, you give them lunch. And they say, I don't like this, don't like that. And they just want a snack like 1 hour later. I think sometimes it's a good idea, like if they don't want to have a meal and they don't eat it, don't give them a snack and let them wait for the next meal. That will train them because when they're hungry, they're more likely to eat a new food. And I know that sounds quite cruel, but often you have to break that pattern of only eating chicken nuggets and pizza. And it's only a hungry child that will try something new. If they're not particularly hungry, they're going to just eat those few foods. And the more they eat a small selection of foods, the more extremely fussy they become. And it becomes a very difficult cycle to get out of. So sometimes you just have to say, all these foods are going in the bin. You can't have them anymore. But I'm going to make these lovely pot noodles. I'm going to make this and this. And eventually, you might be a bit resistant to start with. They'll eat them because they're delicious. And I'm here to really help you, just give you that inspiration that you're going to have a healthy child, you're going to train that child's eating habits. We're going to do everything we can do at Kids Club to make sure that we support you. And do follow me on Instagram. If any of you are Instagram, on social media, I usually post my new recipes on there. Have a look at my app, which has over 300 recipes. And if you want to cook over Christmas, get this book, Fun, Fast and Easy. And thank you everyone for joining me. It's been absolutely lovely chatting to you. Hope to be in Australia soon. Miss coming, love it there. It was so warm and friendly. And hopefully I will see you again soon.